Okay. A very good afternoon to everyone present here. I, Shubhangi Gulati, feel privileged to welcome you all on behalf of Geeta Ratan International Business School in the Personality Development Workshop based on the theme Emotional Intelligence. Geeta Ratan International Business School was established in the year 2004. It is affiliated to Guru Gobind Singh Indraprastha University, Delhi, and is approved by All India Council for Technical Education, Ministry of HRD, and Government of India for technical courses, and Bar Council of India for law courses. The institute conducts various courses, namely MBA, MBA International Business, BBA, BBA LLB, and BA LLB. Gibbs has been graded A by National Assessment and Accreditation Council in the second cycle. It is an ISO 9001 2008 and ISO 14001 2015 certified institute. The institute has been rated A+ by State Fee Regulatory Committee, a fee committee of Government of NCT of Delhi and GGSIPO, and rated highest rating A by Joint Inspection Committee of Government of NCT of Delhi and GGSIP University. The institute has been rated as A+ by State Fee by Academic Audit Cell of GGSIP University continuously from past 6 years. Also, KIPS has been ranked number 2 by Times of India B School Survey continuously from 2018 to 2020. At KIPS, thrust is on overall personality development of students so that they can face challenges in their competitive professional life with value-based approach. Apart from providing quality education, emphasis is on to develop leadership qualities and decision-making skills right from the beginning of their professional education. With this objective at KIPS, we conduct PD workshops for all the students at a regular level. Main aim of today's workshop, which is based on emotional intelligence, is to learn the new methods of improvement of emotional intelligence. And today we have a very eminent and dynamic personality with us, Dr. Poonam Devdutt. Dr. Devdutt has so many feathers on her cap. It will take a lot of time to mention it all. So, to recapitulate a few of them, she is a psychologist with an experience of more than 31 years in teaching of psychology and human resource management. Currently, she is serving as the director at School of Business Studies at Shobit University, Meerut. Along with teaching, she is an organizational trainer, motivational speaker, counselor and life coach, media personality and columnist, and Reiki master. She has conducted advanced training programs for the Punjab Police Academy, Philor, Border Security Force Academy, the Nagpur Airports Authority of India, Indian Medical Association. In addition to the extensive work with armed forces, she has conducted training programs for executives of leading industries, organizations, and banks. In it, her work with frontline schools of the country focuses on psychological testing and career counseling of students, teacher enrichment workshops, and orientation programs for parents. Dr. Devdutt was felicitated as Distinguished Teacher by Vice Chancellor, CCS University, Meerut, and District Magistrate, Meerut, on Teachers' Day 2002. She was decorated with Meerut Ratna Award in 2002 and Sri Shakti Award 2008. In 2010, she was honored as a successful entrepreneur of Meerut by the Meerut Management Association. In 2011, she was bestowed upon the Award for Vocational Excellence and Social Service by the Rotary Club, Meerut. She was nominated for the Hindustan Times Women of the Year 2012. Ma'am, we are honored to have you here. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you so much. And first of all, I would like to express my gratitude to the Institute and the faculty for inviting me here today and giving me this opportunity of interacting with all the beautiful students and sharing some of my ideas with them. I must appreciate the topic which has been chosen for this session. Today we are going to talk about emotional competence and emotional intelligence. This is a topic which is of tremendous importance for all of us. Why is it important? If you simply look at your behavior, if you take a pause and see how you make your decisions, you will find that most of the time we think that we are taking our decisions by using our minds or our logical capacity or our brain. But if you go into the depth, you will realize that most of the time our decisions are based on our feelings, how we feel about something, what is going on at the level of emotion. So emotions play a major, major role in our life. So often you must have heard people saying, oh, today I'm not feeling good, I'm feeling depressed, I'm feeling sad, or today I'm feeling very happy, or today I'm feeling very worried, or sometimes you say I'm feeling very angry. So most of the time, our reactions are based on how we are feeling. So what are emotions? Emotions are strong feelings. Emotions are feelings which are experienced not only at the level of thinking, but emotions are also experienced in the body. Again, if you look at yourself, what happens when you feel very happy? Feel like jumping, you have those expressions, jumping for joy, walking on air. You feel so light and weightless when you are happy. And by contrast, what happens when you are sad? We have that feeling of heaviness. We have that feeling of being very low when you are sad or when you are anxious. We use the expression butterflies in the stomach. When you feel very uncomfortable in the body, you feel uncomfortable bodily sensations, then you are worried. Sometimes when we are worried or like when you are going for an exam, you feel nauseated, you feel like throwing up. Sometimes people may start having loose motions when they are very, very worried or scared. And if you really want to understand the role of the bodily part, just look at yourself or just recall an occasion where you were very angry and try and recall what happened to you in that moment when you were feeling very angry. You may have, the body feels as though it is on fire. You see, we say we go red with anger because the face becomes red, the eyes become wide open. You may start breathing heavily, and you feel like doing something. You feel like throwing something or hitting somebody, or if we can't hit or throw, then we raise our voice, we speak loudly. So, what is happening in that state of anger? There is an upsurge of energy inside the body. And in our angry display, we are trying to throw out that energy. Similarly, if you try to understand what happens with fear when you are afraid, then sometimes we may start trembling, sometimes the face goes pale because the blood rushes away from the face, or sometimes out of fear we may start running. Suppose if you see something you're afraid of, a bull is charging you in the market, so some animal is running after you and you run very fast to escape. So in fear also, sometimes we get energy and sometimes we are paralyzed by fear. We are so panic stricken that we can hardly move. That's why we use the expression paralyzed by fear. So what are all these reactions telling us? These reactions are telling us that emotions are felt in the body. Emotions lead to physiological changes. Emotions change the way the body is functioning at that moment. And also, we experience emotions at the level of the mind. That means we feel the fear in the mind and we also feel the anger in the mind or the sorrow in the mind. That is the angry thoughts or the fearful thoughts. or the sorrowful thoughts. So emotions have these two components. They are at the level of thought as well as at the level of the body. So emotions are influencing both our mind and our body. Now, if we, before we talk about emotional intelligence or emotional competence, let us see what is the role of emotions in our life. Why has nature given us these emotions? So, as I just said, emotions lead to this kind of upsurge of energy. So, we can say that emotions energize our behavior. So if somebody is very angry, then he gets the energy to shout or scream or do something in that state of anger. If we are very afraid, so supposing you uh, are walking in the market and a dog runs after you, then you can run very fast to outrun the dog. So emotions give us that energy to behave in the way that is required. Secondly, apart from this, emotions play another very important role, and that is emotions give direction to our behavior. So you must have seen that if you like somebody, like you have friends, when you come to college, you have friends. So if you walk into the classroom and you see your friend sitting in a particular seat, you will go and sit on the next seat. You will go and sit with your friend. Or as opposed to this, supposing you go to a party and you see somebody over there whom you don't like very much, then you will, instead of going towards that person, you will go away, you will move away, you will go and sit with somebody else. So what is happening? Our emotions are governing the direction of our behavior. Are we moving towards something or are we moving away from something? Supposing your family is watching cricket on TV, and if you like cricket, you will also go and sit down with them and start watching. If you don't like cricket, then you will go and sit in some other room. You don't want to hear all that noise. You will go and sit in your room and you will do something else. So, emotions give direction to our behavior. We move towards the things that we like and we move away from things that we don't like. And lastly, or thirdly, emotions help us in decision making. So again, as I gave you the example, our decisions are governed by our emotions. So very often it happens when children complete their class 12 and then they have to use to decide what they want to do for graduation. So what do? Okay, my best friend is going to XYZ college. So I will also go to XYZ college. My best friend has opted for a course in design. So let me also go along and opt for a course in design. My best friend has opted for hotel management. I also want to do hotel management. So these are examples of how emotions help us to take decisions or emotions govern our decisions. Now, whether it is a good decision or a bad decision, that is a different thing. But so decision making is another specialized topic as to how we should take decisions and so on. But this is what really happens much of the time. Maybe not all of the time, but some of the time. So we see how emotions are playing an important role in our life. And above all, emotions add charm to our personality. They give variety for life. So sometimes we are worried, sometimes we are happy, sometimes we are excited, sometimes we are a little low, sometimes we get angry. So there is variety in our life. Now just imagine a situation or a person who never shows any sign of emotion. He will never show any love or affection to anyone, never laugh, never smile, or never even show any worry or anxiety or fear. So that kind of a person would appear very robotic. You would say, what a dry kind of person, never has any excitement, never has a smile for you, always with a deadpan face. So emotions or emotional expressions give variety to our behavior, and they also give charm to our behavior. So you see very charming people will smile at you, they will greet you with enthusiasm, they will be excited about what they're doing. So that adds to the charm of their personality. So therefore we understand that emotions play a vital role in our life. Now, as we just said, emotions play a vital role. Much of the time, that role may be positive. But imagine the opposite situation. There may be times when emotions become a barrier for us, or when emotions create problems for us. For example, take the example of anger. So anger can be a very troublesome emotion. So anger and the display of anger or uncontrolled anger can lead to so many complications for us. We have heard of people, you may break up a friendship. A person may be angry with his job. The boss says something, and the person answers back in anger, and then he says, "Oh, I don't want to work with this job, this boss. I'm going to resign," and he resigns. Later, when he thinks about it, he may regret it because it may not be easy to find another job. But in that moment of anger, he gave up his job, and now he has to regret it. Or sometimes we break up our friendship. We break up friendships, we break up relationships, we fight with our family members, we hurt our family members, all because of emotions. So if I am angry with, I have a tendency to get very angry without much reason, then all my relationships will be troublesome or troubled, whether it is parents or brothers and sisters or our friends or our spouse, everyone will be suffering because of our anger. Or supposing you are in business and you get angry with your customer, and what happens? The customer walks out of your shop or walks out of that situation and you lose a customer. Extreme cases. You may have, when you read the paper, you may have read of news reports of what is called road rage. Road rage means two people have a small accident and then they get out of their car or their bike or whatever and they start quarreling with each other. It was your fault, it was your fault, and he says, no, it's not my fault. And that quarrel becomes greater and greater, and then one person takes out a knife and stabs the other. Or one person takes out a pistol and shoots the other. These things have happened. Many cases of road rage have happened in which people have attacked each other, they have hurt each other, or they have even killed each other. Sometimes you hear about crimes of passion. So, in a fit of jealousy, so one boyfriend and a girlfriend, they are friendly, but sometimes the relationship may break, or one person may get involved with a third person, and in a fit of jealousy, people may go to the extent of committing even murder. So, what is happening in these cases? Again, it is the emotions, or let us say, when we are not able to control our emotions, then we are not able to keep emotions in check. When we are not able to regulate our emotions, then emotions can bring disaster in our life. Another emotion like fear. So a person may be afraid of interviews. He may be afraid of talking in front of a gathering or in front of a group of people. So he has that fear of speaking in front of others. He may go from one interview to another and another and another, but in every interview, he is not able to perform well because he is paralyzed by fear, and therefore is not able to get a good career for himself. So these are different ways in which emotions can also have a damaging effect on our life if we are not able to regulate our emotions. And that is why we need to talk about emotional competence. So let us now examine what is the meaning of emotional competence. What do we mean when we say somebody is emotionally intelligent or what is emotional intelligence, or what is emotional quotient, or emotional competence. These are different terms, but they are all interrelated. So just as you have intelligence quotient, which tells you about the level of intelligence of a person, similarly, there's another concept called EQ, that is emotional quotient. That means the extent to which you are able to regulate your emotions well, extent to which you are able to handle emotions well. That is your emotional quotient. And related to that is emotional competence. If you have a high emotional quotient, we say you are emotionally competent. And if you have a low emotional quotient, then we say you are not emotionally competent. So these are the related terms. So what does it imply? If I say that this so and so XYZ person is, he has got high emotional competence or high emotional intelligence, what does that mean? It means several things. First of all, it means, am I able to understand and recognize my own emotions? Very often, people are not able to identify their own emotions. They are feeling disturbed, they are feeling upset. But if you ask them, what are you feeling? They are not able to put their finger. They are not able to identify exactly what emotions they
Excuse
are
ma'am.
going. Yes,
Ma'am,
yes,
your voice is breaking.
okay, all right. So we were talking about what is emotional competence. So emotional competence involves several things. Is it better now? Can you hear me better now? Ma'am,
Yes, ma'am.
can you hear me better now?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So emotional competence, one the first thing which is involved in emotional competence is that are we able to identify and understand our own emotions? Am I able to identify that at this moment I'm feeling angry, or at this moment I am feeling a little anxious, or at this moment I am feeling a little irritated, or happy, or sorrowful? So, ability to identify my own emotions. Then, our ability to identify the emotions of other people. So the second aspect of emotional competence is, am I able to recognize and identify the emotions of the other person? What is the other person thinking or feeling? So if you are interacting with a customer, can you identify, is your customer feeling satisfied? Is he happy? Or is he dissatisfied? Is he irritated? Or if you're dealing with your friends, so at any given moment, are your friends okay? Are they happy or are they upset? Are they worried? Are they annoyed with you? Are they fearful about something? Are they anxious? Or if you're in a job, are you able to identify the emotions of your boss or your colleague? Are they okay? Are they cool? Or are they are angry but they are not able to express it? They are irritated, they are annoyed, and so on. So, number one, emotional competence means, are we able to recognize and identify our own emotions? Secondly, emotional competence means, are we able to recognize and understand the emotions of other people? Then, third thing, recognizing is important, but after recognizing what? Once we recognize our own emotions, are we able to regulate our own emotions? So if I'm feeling angry with somebody, am I able to express my anger in a proper way, or do I get uncontrolled? Or if I am feeling fear, am I able to do something about this fear? Or am I allowing the fear to paralyze me. So our ability to regulate our own emotions. And similarly, not just our emotions, we are always, you see, we are social creatures. All human beings are live in society. So when we are living in society, there are so many other people with whom we are interacting. So are we able to understand and recognize and then deal with their emotions? So if your boss is very angry with you, are you able to deal with that? Or supposing you get an angry customer, your customer is very dissatisfied with the service that has been provided to him. Now, how do we deal with that? So if customer comes and speaks to you rudely, are you going to also speak to him rudely? Are you also going to shout at him? Or are you going to be able to pacify him? Or are you going to be able to make him cool down so that he goes away in a satisfied manner? So therefore, this was the fourth thing. Are we able to understand and then are we able to deal with the emotions of others? So these are the four very vital aspects of emotional competence. So we can say that an emotionally competent person is one who is able to understand his own emotions and understand the emotions of other people. And secondly, an emotionally competent person is one who is able to deal with his own emotions and also able to deal with the emotions of other people. So if we are able to do these four things, then we can use emotions to our advantage. Then we can use emotions to nourish and optimize our life. But if we are not able to do these four things, then our emotions will become a handicap and our emotions will interfere with our performance and with our success in life. So now having understood what is the role of emotions, what are emotions, and what is emotional competence, let us also see why it is necessary to develop emotional competence. So one reason that we have already talked about is that it is important for our relationships, our job, our family, our friends. And secondly, regulation of emotions is also important for our own health. Why is that important? Because if our emotions are not regulated properly, then it will lead to a lot of stress for us. It will lead to a lot of psychological stress. And that stress will ultimately, again, adversely affect our performance and our relationships. So therefore, it is very important for us to deal effectively with our emotions. So now I would like to talk about the different ways in which we can deal with different emotions. So let us talk about worry first. Very often you say, I'm worried about my exams, I'm worried about my family, I'm worried about my health. And you see in the past 1.5 years, in the conditions of the pandemic, the whole world has been through a very difficult time. And so many of us have experienced fear, we have experienced grief, we have experienced anxiety about ourselves and our loved ones and what's going to happen in the future. So what do we do about worry? Do we just sit and allow it to agitate us? Do we just stay in a state of agitation? Do we just stay in that state of tension? No. The best antidote for tension is action. Mostly what happens is when we are worried, we just sit and do nothing. We just, we are just sitting there and taking all that stress and we're not doing anything. You say, I'm too worried to do anything. I'm too bothered to I'm too upset to do anything. But that is not the healthy approach. What is the healthy approach? Healthy approach is taking action. And what action should we take? The action should be that which helps us to deal with the situation. For example, supposing I'm worried about my exam, so my date sheet has been declared, and 1 month later or 15 days after my exams are coming up. So what do I do? Do I just sit and worry? Or if I'm worried about my exam, is it more helpful to get down to work? Okay, I have 15 days now. I'm going to use these 15 days to study intensively. I will use maximum of my time to study. I will cut down on my recreation. I will cut down on my other activities, and I will use maximum time to prepare for my examination. So that is the constructive approach. So if we are worried about something which is coming up, then our energy should be directed to making preparations, and making preparations in a systematic way. So I make a plan, okay, I have 15 days, and so how many chapters do I have to study? Supposing in this exam, I have to study 20 chapters or 15 chapters. So I will divide it accordingly, that every day I'm going to complete one chapter or 1.5 chapters, so that by the time the exam comes up, I have covered my entire course. So planning and planning the right action and then executing the right action. That is the way to deal with worry. So whatever you're worried about, supposing you're worried about, you've been asked to make a presentation in front of your class and you have never spoken in front of an audience and you're very worried, you're very scared about, you feel I will not be able to open my mouth. My knees will become weak, I will tremble. Okay, so what do we do? Your presentation is after 1 week. How do we do it? We plan it out. We make our presentation, whether it's a PowerPoint presentation, whatever you have to write, whatever you have to do, I make that, and then I practice. I practice with myself first. Then I may ask two of my friends, okay, please hear me. I'm going to make this presentation. I have to do it for the first time. Please hear me and give me feedback. So I practice once, twice, 3 times till I begin to feel more confident. So if we take action of this kind, if we take constructive action, then much of our worries can be dealt with. Sometimes we are worried because the task before us is too big. You have to organize a festival, a cultural festival in your institution, and you are being given some responsibility, and you feel, how am I going to do it? It is such a huge task. How do we do it? We do it by breaking it down into smaller tasks. Okay, so that one big task can be divided into different smaller tasks, and we start doing one small task at a time. And that is how we will complete the entire task. So this is how we take care of worry. Now here sometimes also we may need to take guidance from experts. Sometimes we may feel that I cannot handle this situation on my own. For example, you're worried about your health. Somebody in your family has been having some symptoms and you don't understand what's happening and nobody understands what's happening. But you are afraid. I hope it is not something serious. So what do we do? What action do we take? Then we go to the expert. Then we consult a doctor about it. We have a consultation with the expert. We have a consultation with the doctor. And we take the guidance from there. Sometimes it's a legal matter, it's a property matter, it is some dispute. Then what do? We go to a lawyer, we take legal opinion. So sometimes for taking action, the action may be in your control and sometimes the action may not be in your control, then we may need to take some expert advice. So as a student, supposing you are having some difficulty in your school or college, some subject you cannot understand, some difficulties you are having, then Go to your teacher. Take guidance from your teacher that this is the difficulty. Please show me the path. What do I need to do in order to overcome this anxiety? So this is how we deal with anxiety. And why do we say action? Because when you are taking action, your energy is absorbed in the action. It will have two benefits. One, if it is a right action, it will lead you to a solution. And secondly, your energy is being constructively utilized. Your energy is not being dissipated. Your energy is not being wasted here and there. It is being constructively utilized in dealing with the problem. So we are being solution oriented, not problem oriented. What do I mean by this? Who is solution oriented and who is problem oriented? You may have seen some people are always complaining, oh, I have so much work, my home situation is so difficult, I have so many difficulties. So what are they doing? They are only repeating the problem. I have this problem and this problem and this problem and this problem. But they are not taking action. So who is a solution-oriented person? Solution-oriented person is one who will take the proper action to find the solution. So, okay. So I have 1, 2, 3, these three problems. Fine. So what action do I need to take to deal with these problems? So I at once get down to the action rather than only complaining and being grumpy and being sorrowful or worried about the problem. So this is how we deal with worry and fear. Worry and fear are actually similar in the sense worry is a mild form of fear. So all these emotions that we have, whether it's fear or happiness or anger, they have different degrees. So a mild form of fear is worry, and a mild form of anger is irritation, and a very severe form of anger is rage, and a severe form of fear is panic. So all these emotions are qualitatively different from one another and also quantitatively different from one another. Now let me talk about anger, because we all know that anger, if it is uncontrolled, it can create a lot of problems. So anger can become one of the most troublesome of emotions. However, because anger involves energy, it involves release of so much energy in the body. So we can utilize our anger to energize our behavior. If we use it in the right way, then it gives us the energy to take a lot of corrective action. So there are different ways of dealing with anger. First of all, we have to analyze, we have to accept that anger is there rather than saying, oh, no, I'm not angry at all. No, we have to recognize, if anger is there, we need to recognize it and understand that yes, it is there. And then we have to think about taking the remedial action. For that, we will have to identify what is the source of my anger. What is it that is making me angry? There can be different reasons for anger. For example, one of the reasons for anger is frustration. So what is frustration? Frustration is when you have a goal, you want to achieve something, but there's a barrier. You are not able to achieve that. That is frustration. So for example, you wanted to appear for a competitive examination, whether it was for medical entrance or engineering entrance or something. And that was your goal. But for some reason, you were not able to clear the entrance exam. So you were not able to achieve that goal. Now, what do we do? One reason is that we start getting angry. Oh, nobody listens to me. Nobody cares for me. These exams are so unfair. They are so difficult. This, that, and the other. We start complaining. We start putting the blame on other people rather than seeing how I am responsible. So one of the ways of dealing with frustration is to see what is my responsibility. If I'm frustrated, supposing I wanted very good marks, I wanted to score above 95% because all my friends were doing it. But I did not get, I only got 80%. Now I'm frustrated. But so I say, oh, teachers didn't teach me. Oh, the paper was too difficult. Oh, there was a lot of unfairness in the exam. Paper was out of course. So what am I doing? I'm putting the blame outside of myself. I'm putting the blame on other people. But if I am emotionally competent, if I have good emotional intelligence, I will ask myself another question. And what is that other question which I will ask myself? That other question is, okay, so I have not scored good marks. What is it that I need to do differently? Or how am I responsible for getting only 80% whereas my friends got 95%? What went wrong? What did I do which I should not have done? Or what is it that I should have done and I didn't do? So where was I lacking? What is my shortcoming? So I may realize when I think like that, I may realize that yes, I know I didn't attend all my classes. Number two, I did my study only at the last minute. I did not study consistently throughout the year or throughout the semester. I only opened my book 15 days before the exam. Or I did not give enough time to my study. I should have done self-study at least 3 hours every day, but I did not study in a regular basis. Sometimes I studied, sometimes I did not study. So all these factors are responsible for bringing my marks low. So once I've done this analysis, then I may decide, okay, now for my next exam, I will not make these mistakes. For next exam, I will be regular for class, I will give enough time, and I will study consistently, not at the last minute. So this is what is meant by taking things in your own hands and by taking responsibility for what is happening to you. That is the mark of a emotionally intelligent person. So this is how we deal with the frustration. Then, secondly, another way of dealing with frustration is that, okay, one goal I've not been able to achieve. So if that goal is not possible, maybe I can change my goal. Maybe I can get success through another means. So I was not able to become an engineer, but maybe I can become successful by becoming a manager. I can become successful by becoming an entrepreneur, by becoming a business person. So we change, if one goal is not available, we may change our goal and move on with our life rather than becoming frustrated and angry and cynical. Then another important aspect is then we feel very angry how we deal with it. Sometimes because of our anger, we make things difficult for our family, we shout and scream, we may hit other people, or we stop talking to people, we break our friendship. So how can we deal with this destructive aspect of anger? So first of all, at the level of our thought, at the level of our rationality, we need to ask ourselves three questions. So if I'm feeling very angry about, say, X, first question I have to ask is this really worthwhile getting angry? Is it something so important that I must lose my temper over it? Secondly, is it justified? Is my anger justified? Am I right in getting angry with this person? And thirdly, will getting angry help? If I shout and scream, is it going to change anything? Is it going to be helpful in solving the problem? So, first question, will getting angry help? Second question, is it justified? And third question, is it important enough to be angry about? And if any of these answers is no, that it is not important enough, it is not justified, it will not help, then we need to decide that this I do not need to be angry about this XYZ issue. So, first of all, evaluate your anger. Then, if we find that yes, anger is still there, then there are different physical as well as cognitive techniques of dealing with anger. So physical technique, if you're feeling very angry, you just had a fight with a friend, or maybe your parents scolded you for something, or your teacher said something and you are angry about that. Then what do? I'm feeling very angry, I don't know what to do. So rather than hitting another person, rather than yelling at somebody, what do? I use that energy differently. What do? Maybe I go for a walk, maybe I play a game of badminton or tennis or throw ball, which will help me to throw out that energy. Or maybe I go and I dust my books and I rearrange my books, or do something which takes out that energy. Or if nothing else, I just go and hit my pillow or hit a boxer's dummy to throw out that energy. So rather than hitting somebody you know, rather than hitting a person, it is better to hit a pillow and take out your anger. Then, yet another way of dealing with anger is that we talk about it to somebody. Any emotion, whether it is anger or even fear or sadness, sometimes we are sad. And when we are sad, we withdraw into ourselves. We don't like to talk about it. But simply keeping those emotions suppressed inside us will create distortions in our behavior. So if I am suppressing my anger or suppressing my fear or suppressing my sadness, it will create distortions in my behavior. So one way of dealing with emotions is to talk about it to somebody. But be careful, talk about it to somebody who is responsible, not somebody who will spread it around. So it should be a trusted friend or a family member, a parent or a brother or sister or a good friend or any close relative who is a responsible person. And if you feel no, I cannot talk about it to anyone, or there's nobody with whom I can talk, then resort to a professional psychologist, a counselor, or some medical professional. Why professionals? Because professionals, a psychologist will always maintain confidentiality. A psychologist will always ensure that what you tell him or her is going to stay with him or her. They will not spread it around. They will not tell other people about it. So this is a very good way of, not only dealing with the emotion but also finding a solution. In psychological terms, we call it catharsis. That is, you do not bottle up your emotion. You share it and bring it out. Bottling up of emotions is not healthy, because when you keep bottling up, then what happens? One day it is like a blast. So just like a pressure cooker, if steam goes on building up, what will happen? Pressure cooker will burst. So what do we have in the pressure cooker? We have a safety valve. If too much steam accumulates in the pressure cooker, then the safety valve will open and the steam will escape. If it does not escape, the cooker will burst and there will be a tragedy or an accident. Similarly, for humans, we need to throw out the negative emotions. We need to discharge the negative emotions, but we need to discharge it in a healthy way so that it does not cause any damage. And above all, lastly, to conclude my talk, I would say that it's very important to deal with these emotions, because if we do not deal with the emotions in a healthy way, then it will lead to stress for us. It will lead to too much stress, and that stress will ultimately show up in the body. So you may have heard of different stress-related diseases. Somebody gets hypertension, somebody gets asthma attack, or so many other diseases, heart disease, diabetes. These diseases are one of the causes of these diseases is too much stress. So emotional competence means that we know how to deal with our stressful emotions. We know how to deal with our negative emotions. So whether it is sadness or grief also. Sometimes when we are too sad, we are too much in grief, we don't like to share it. But then keeping the grief within us also becomes stressful. So it's okay to share your sorrows also with somebody, to share your worries with somebody, to share your problems with somebody. The only thing is we do it in a responsible way, not just that you go talking about your troubles to everyone whom you meet. No, that will not be helpful. Because all those people cannot solve your problem. So whenever we talk about emotional competence, one thing more we have to remember, and that is to keep a positive attitude. Now, what do I mean by a positive attitude? Positive attitude means that we always look for the brighter side of everything rather than seeing the negative side, whether it is people or whether it is situations. So there are some people who will always be finding fault with everyone, their friends, family, teachers, colleagues, customers, everyone. But the other thing is, if you, yes, we recognize that there may be some shortcomings, but we don't dwell on those shortcomings. We don't focus on shortcomings only all the time. We try to look for the good points. We try to see the positive points in every situation. And if we make it a habit, then we can always be in a better frame of mind. So understand that your thoughts have a great influence on your emotions. If your thoughts are negative all the time, then your emotions will also be negative. If you're always thinking of what is going wrong, what is the fault of the other person, then you will also be dissatisfied. But if you see the good points in a situation, you will be able to maintain your calmness and your constructive approach. So, part of emotional competence is that try to see the good points in every person and in every situation. Then you will be happier in your relationship. When you see the good points of your parents or your siblings or your friends or your colleagues or your classmates, you will be in a happy frame of mind. But if I'm only finding fault with everyone, I will be perpetually this. Yeah. Okay. So I think there was some technical problem. So with this, I would like to bring this session to a close. I think we have talked about several things in this session. We talked about what are emotions. We talked about what is the role of emotions in our life and why emotions are important. And then we talked about what is emotional intelligence and emotional competence, what are the qualities of an emotionally intelligent person, and why it is necessary to regulate our emotions. And then we talked about how we can deal with different negative emotions like sadness, fear, anxiety, and anger. Of course, I would like to add that there are many, many more techniques, a whole range of techniques additionally, which we can use for emotional regulation. But since our time is for 1 hour, we need to limit what we are talking about. But definitely we need to understand that no matter what the emotion, there is always a way out. There is always a way of dealing with it so that it does not create problems in our life. And if we are able to regulate our emotions well, then we will be able to maintain good relationships, with people around us, and we will also be more satisfied and happy internally. So overall, emotional competence leads to a happy and constructive life. So with that, I would like to thank you all for your patient hearing, and I wish you all the very best. Thank you.
Ma'am, it was such an encouraging session.
Thank you. Thank you.
On behalf of GIFT, I
Thank you.
express my heartfelt thanks to you for taking out your precious time and joining us throughout the event. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.